Hi there, this is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer, with another book review. In this novel, we're discussing Book 3 in the Hamish Macbeth series. It's called Death of an Outsider. I have reviewed Book 1 and 2 in this series, and Book 3 is continuing my journey into Hamish Macbeth as I reread the entire series. If you don't want to miss out on these videos, or you want to check out the first two, go to my channel, and while you're there, why not subscribe? So in this novel, Hamish is taken away from his beloved village, and he has to fill in for another police officer in another village called Nothin. Hamish doesn't want to do that. He wants to stay in his own home, with his own animals, in his own village with the people he knows. And who can blame him, because so far his village has been delightful, and we're getting to know a few of the other characters in the village. Not many yet in this series, but a few, and those we've met are quite nice and quite delightful. In this novel, we only get to see a glimpse of two other characters, Jessie and Nessie Curry, who are sisters, both elderly, never married, live in Hamish's village. They live together in the same house. They're quite colourful characters in this series, and it's a shame that we only get to see a very brief glimpse of them as they're on the same bus as Hamish when he's travelling to Nothin. When Hamish gets to Nothin, he finds it a bit dull, a bit dreary, very behind the times. He feels quite modern in this village. Of course, wherever Hamish goes, murder follows, and we do have a murder later on. But first we get to know some of the characters in Nothin. One of the main characters we get to meet is a man called Mr. Mainwaring, and he's just a beast, really. He gets people offside all the time. He's a bit of a know-it-all. He yells at people, he tells people they're doing everything wrong, people just don't like him, and he turns a lot of people offside. And as I'm reading this novel, I think, well, that seems a pretty familiar theme so far in books 1, 2 and 3 for MC Beaton in this series. We do learn that Mr. Mainwaring is the victim, the murder victim in this novel, and for the first 3 books, so books 1, 2 and 3, the murder victim is somebody who puts everybody offside, very opinionated, very loud, very rude to everybody. Multiple people don't like them, so it's a common theme. So you think after doing that a couple of times, something may change. So I'm hoping in the rest of the series that changes. We don't always have the same type of person being murdered. Just be too convenient and a little bit lazy in the series. So while Hamish is in this village, he's finding there's not much for him to do. There's not much crime at all. But he gets his eyes set on a neighbour called Jenny, and Jenny is a painter, and to Hamish, Jenny is just gorgeous, and he wants to get to know her more, so he goes out of his way to befriend her, and quickly things develop between them, and they're basically like rabbits throughout this book. They can't get enough of each other, and even while he's with Jenny, he's still thinking about Priscilla. He's just wondering what's going on between himself and Priscilla, because he thought they were just getting a bit closer, but he's still unsure about Priscilla's feelings towards him. So we have that kind of investigation in his thoughts in this novel, and maybe that's the reason why the author took him out of his own village into another setting. Maybe it's just to enable that character to explore his own thoughts and feelings about Priscilla. So if that's the case, that was quite clever. After the murder, the plot goes on, and of course we have Blair and his team coming in to help with the investigation, and with that we see Blair mistreating Hamish again. That sort of mistreatment is going up a notch or two in this novel, and we see, I think, the first glimpses of Blair trying to get Hamish fired, trying to cook up a scheme to try to get Hamish fired from the police force. I think this is the first novel where that happens. I won't give anything else about the plot away, especially the investigation and the murder, because that will ruin the book for anybody who hasn't read it. I will mention one thing. After reading this novel, you may think twice about eating lobster again. Just something that happens in this novel. You just may think twice about going to a restaurant and ordering that lobster. In this novel, we have a whole cast of new characters. So of course we've got Hamish. Priscilla makes an appearance towards the end, but very briefly. I won't discuss Hamish in this section for this novel because he's familiar to us. There's other characters in Nothin that aren't familiar to us. So I think we'll discuss them. The first one is Jenny. So Jenny is the artist, and of course she's the artist that Hamish hooks up with in this novel. And as I said before, they're just like rabbits. They're at each other all the time. Jenny is quite an interesting character. She comes across as quite fun in a novel, but she also comes across as a bit complex because she has a bit of a history. She's got an ex-husband in Canada, and she seems still unsure whether she still likes the ex-husband or not. Hamish doesn't think much of her art, but won't tell her that. She thinks she's a wonderful artist. Anybody who doesn't like her art has no taste, and she doesn't like. So maybe that's the reason Hamish isn't honest with her about his feelings towards her art. So Mr. and Mrs. Mainwaring. Of course, they stand out as interesting characters in this novel because Mr. Mainwaring is the murder victim. Not only that, he's the rude person, the obnoxious one, who's always at people telling them what to do, they're doing things wrong, the know-it-all character. Mrs. Mainwaring is totally different. It's like chalk and cheese. She's nicer, she's polite, she cares for people, she likes the village, she likes the people in the village. The only thing about her is she's so browbeaten by Mr. Mainwaring that she's scared of him. And we see certain scenes in this novel where she does things behind his back, drinks a bit of whiskey or drinks some wine or has a cigarette. Then if he's in the scene or nearby or coming home, she has to hide that and quickly hide what she's doing and cover up. So they're chalk and cheese characters, and you feel very sorry for Mrs. Mainwaring as a character. And the author did a really good job of presenting this relationship to the reader, I think, in this very brief book, because this book is quite short, that we get a really true sense of this couple and what they're like and that relationship. So these characters were very well developed for the brief time that they're given in this novel. The other two characters I'll mention, and they're also a couple, they're married, are Jamie and Helen, and they run the lobster farm, and also they farm other animals and things as well. They're interesting because they're also a couple that are presented to us as not being 100% happy. Jamie is so focused on his business, he ignores his wife. Helen is very well educated, and she's given up her own chances of a career to support her husband and his business. So we have that kind of bit of awkwardness in their relationship, and you get the sense that Helen wants more excitement, more adventure. She wants to do something for herself, and that comes across in these characters. And so I thought, again, in the very short book, MC Beaton did a great job in just giving us that feeling of those characters. Even though this novel takes us away from Hamish's home, I thought it was a really good novel. I thought the other characters in Nothin were well developed, and some were eccentric, of course, because you see that in these type of novels. We get eccentric characters in almost every book, but we got a sense of some really good characters in this novel, and for a short novel, that was really well done. I thought the mystery was also good. I thought it improved a bit from book 1 and 2, especially book 1. For this novel, I rated it a 4 out of 5. It's because the mystery was a little bit better, I think, than book 2. That's the main reason. Also, the characters, even though they're not my favourite characters because they're not from Hamish's village, they're still quite fresh, quite unique, and some of them are quite fun. I did like the little kind of uniqueness about this murder and about what happens to the body. I thought that was also interesting as well and very engaging. It's continuing to be a very good series for me, and I'm enjoying these rereads. If you're a big fan of Hamish Macbeth and also Agatha Raisin and other cozy mysteries, check out the playlist on my channel for cozy mysteries. You'll find it on the screen now.